All right, welcome to the Stampscapes Lab Live. This ink on this piece of metallic blue foil has dried, kind of. It still might be a little bit moist, and it's been Friday, Saturday, well, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's been like 3 days, okay? And I've placed this piece outside to dry. It's been quite warm here in Southern California, and I have added about 2 or 3 layers of Krylon workable fixative over the top of it. I feel that it still has all of the qualities of a glossy piece of blue foil. It's a little bit frosted, which can't be helped in a situation like this. But this ink was really, really wet for, I don't know, a couple days in there. So I put it outside to dry. And I seem to recall imagery drying on this type of paper faster in the past, but I really slathered the surface or the stamp with a lot of ink this time, just because I wanted to make sure that the ink images would transfer as opposed to lifting off the white that I had already or just applied when I made those impressions. So sometimes stamping a stamp that's a little bit kind of on the drier side, medium to dry, and when you're stamping it onto a layer of wet, pigment ink in the form of these clouds, sometimes the danger is instead of transferring the ink to the surface, you're lifting the ink off of the surface back onto the stamp. So you have to have a pretty decent amount of ink on your stamp to transfer it like that on these non-porous types of surfaces. Okay, so I think this card looks okay just as is. We have the image, we have all the clouds in the background and the images stamped right over the top of it. Okay, but here's the thing. I don't find that that's integrating the scenery, the imagery into the piece very well. So what I like to do is I like to kind of what's the word? It's you want to integrate and kind of immerse. You want visual immersion of the imagery into that type of environment. So if there's a lot of foggy, kind of cloudy forms in there, if we were somewhere in this type of situation, you'd have some of those forms in front of the imagery. Okay, so we're gonna try to do that. Hello, Laura. Yeah, that's the blue mirrored one here. So it took a while for this one to dry. So you and I are in a good location for drying time on this. I really inked up that Brilliance ink pad, like super, super juicy. So this black ink was like as wet as it was at the time that I stamped it 2 days after. So I put it outside to dry, and it dried it off pretty decently. But then I hit it with some of the Krylon workable fixative, and then today it was like I was touching it, and it was like, okay, that's still a little bit moist. Some of that black ink was coming off on my fingers, so I hit it again with another layer of workable fixative, and then I had it outside to dry too. One of the nice things about foil like this is that I don't find that if we put it outside in full sunlight, you know what I mean? If it fades it out at all, I don't know, it won't be anything discernible. Hello, Zale. How are you? Good to see you. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to integrate this. Now, hopefully, all this is nice and dry because I don't want to be dabbing this down here and it's like I'm lifting a bunch of black ink off of the surface, but I don't think that should happen. I kind of touched it a little bit and it's like, yeah, I think there's still a little bit of moisture on there, but hopefully the way that I'll be applying this, you know what I mean? It won't affect the impressions at least, or the clarity of the impressions. Okay, so let's try this out here. Okay, I'm gonna just be dabbing this very lightly. I'm gonna be kind of aware, or keep an awareness of you know, this cotton ball. I don't want to see like a blob of like wet ink right here or something like that I'm going to be dragging around. It's kind of interesting. I'm laying that down. It's almost like a warm white as opposed to this kind of more neutral one here. I guess it's just, I don't know. It's because it's over the top of the black ink, I guess. All right, so I want to do things like this. Okay, sorry, it's so glary right here. It's just like trying to photograph a foil piece sometimes. Sometimes we're in the photo because we're in the, you know, the reflection. But shooting these videos too, it's a little bit difficult with it, you know, all that glare coming back into the camera. So sorry about that. All right, so laying this down, I'm kind of curious to know if that is going to be the end result right there, as far as what it looks like. Sometimes when we're applying this white pigment ink over the top of wet dye-based inks or something like that, sometimes I don't know, I'm convinced that to a small degree it physically merges with some of that media that's underneath it. Or it's just absorbing into the surface, where in this one right here, you know, maybe not because I've spray sealed it so much. I'm not sure. You know, this is interesting right here. As I tap right down here, it's really applying over here, but it's not applying over the top of the impression at the rate that it's applying in this area right here. I'm guessing because the this area here, even though I've sprayed it, you know, with the Krylon over both areas right here, I'm guessing right in here, this white pigmenting that's underneath everything, it's probably a little bit more textural in here than it is on top of the black ink right there. So it's probably grabbing onto this area down here a little bit faster, you know, with this application right here. I'm not sure. Yeah, this is white Brilliance ink right here. You can't really use other types of ink on here as far as I know. It's not, you know, maybe, you know, with the Brilliance ink down there, you can use an oil-based, you know, pigment ink, and maybe it'll grab it, I'm not sure. But, okay, I'm picking up some of that black ink right there. Let me go with a little bit of a thicker slathering of white then, so that I have more ink on this than whatever's, you know, still on the surface right here. That's still kind of wet. And I'll try to apply some of this right here. That's a big solid area of black right there, so I don't know, there was probably still a little bit of a residual kind of buildup of, you know, a little bit of that ink on there. Yeah, but this ink right here is a water-based ink, so, you know, it's drying on here. Not quite as fast as I had hoped, but it nevertheless will dry. See, if we use like an oil-based on top of something like this, it'd be like putting some oil on top of glass or something like that and hoping it'll dry, which it probably wouldn't. Like if we used oil paints on something, you know, so you really need for this to, the type of ink that's going to dry by as much by evaporation as possible. You know, because they're usually drying by evaporation and absorption, but you know, you can keep, you know, completely, you know, forget about the absorption factor on this, on these types of non-porous surfaces. Okay, let me try to, I know this area up here is a little bit wet. I'm going to use this little, whatever, cloud stencil here. And let's try to apply some in here. I don't know. Relatively quickly. So I'll use the stencil for kind of establishing a little bit of an edge. That I'm just trying to get, I'm working this up into these mountains kind of slowly. I don't want to do it too fast because again, it's a little bit wet, I can tell. That area right there was quite wet with black ink. Okay, so you can see it right on my cotton ball there. So I'm going to switch off to another area of the cotton ball, and we'll go with that. Can't find my glossy blue. Uh-oh. Busy with my glossy chrome coat. Now, Candy, where is it? Or where did you think it was? Or did you use it? Your glossy blue. What color is your glossy blue? Is it like a darker or lighter one? Hello, Bonnie. Hello, Heather. And hello, Debbie. Lurking's fine. Thanks for joining in here or checking it out. So I'm just adding this over the tops here, okay? This pigment ink, even though it's the same color as the background has been spray sealed with the workable fixative. So it does change it. The background changes to a little bit more of a, it moves towards transparency the more you spray this type of surface. It's almost as if, I mean, it's not pastels or something like that. It's a wet medium. But when this Brilliance ink dries, it might as well be like a pastel that's, you know, laid down there. And one thing about pastels and chalks or something like that is when you spray seal them, they're prone to kind of the lighter tones. If the lighter tones are on top of darker tones, they have a tendency of just kind of disappearing if you spray it too thickly. Okay, now I've had to lay down quite a few coats on here. But just, I don't know, that color, you know, in there, I guess maybe because it's blending with a little bit of that black, it looks like a different color. So I'm going to try to add some more of this down here for a little bit more of that integration. But I have a feeling that when this dries, though, I'm hoping that it kind of moves more towards that kind of neutral white as opposed to this kind of warmer white. Okay. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do, too, is if it doesn't, I'm going to allow that to dry, and then I'm going to spray seal it again, and then we'll lay down another layer right over the top of it, okay? So this might be a base layer for the foreground clouds, okay, if that happens. That's all you have to do is just, you utilize your sealants to seal something off. Okay, so this is what this is looking like right now. So we need to get a little bit, or well, not a little bit, but quite a bit lighter, I think, right in here. And again, it's to kind of integrate the imagery into the background a little bit more, or into the scenery a little bit more, not just the background, but I want the imagery to look like it's enveloped with the clouds, okay? And that will make it look more a part of it as opposed to just having a background and the imagery stamped over the top of it. When you put something in front of it, you know, in terms of like atmospherics and lighting, it has a little bit more of a, I don't know, kind of an integrated look to it. You can do it with imagery too, but this type of thing kind of creates a little bit more mood into the scene. You know, if you go out and walking in a, you know, kind of a foggy day or something like that, you know, when you're moving through it, there's a certain type of feel to it, you know, that the visuals are giving us. And that's what I want with this type of imagery. Okay, so here's what I'm doing right here. I'm kind of bringing in some of these clouds up here. I didn't know, where the imagery was going to, where the clouds were going to end and the imagery was going to begin until I stamped it out. But then I couldn't add this in there at that time because this was just sopping wet with, this black ink. Now look at this right here. I'm picking up some black ink right on my fingers. So I'm touching something in here that's still really quite wet, apparently. So it's probably something on the perimeter like this. I was mostly spraying at the base of these like islands in here and the base of the mountain. I tried not to spray too much up there because I figured I wasn't going to be hitting it too much with the white pigment ink. And then, I'm just going to allow this to dry more, air dry a little bit more. Yeah, but the temperature of that black mixing with this white, it's giving it a warm temperature, so it's kind of changing it. So the foreground is not, it's not integrating like I wanted it to. So I think this is going to serve as like a base coat. I just used like way too much ink, I think, on my pad when I stamped it out. But I was worried that it wasn't going to stamp out though. So I don't know. You never know until you do it sometimes. Okay, just because this ink here was just so, the paper was just so glossy blue. All right, let me try to get a heavier coating right in here. It's not light enough. I think it needs to be lighter. I guess which makes sense because this is like the foreground in here. So it's going a little bit lighter in the foreground and maybe darker in the background. The darker types of things tend to recede in the background a little bit more, or in terms of the clouds at least. With imagery, it's the opposite. All right, so see that right there? That's what I really need a lot more of right throughout here. So that worked out pretty good, but again, it's a little bit warm right there in terms of this white temperature. It's like it's almost like I'm applying like cream or something like that, like a cream white. Okay, let's see. I think this paper towel's doing the trick right here. Okay, that's better. Yeah. I needed to utilize the cloud template or whatever, stencil. I'm putting this over some of these foreground reeds down here, which is going to lighten up my reeds, which I don't necessarily want, but I can always restamp some more reeds right in here that are going to be darker over lighter ones, so that's not really a big deal. Okay, let's see. All right, let's bring some of these cloud, a little bit more of a defined cloud formations to the background as well. See, I'm kind of changing the shapes now by putting some of this in the, the foreground. So I need to, create at least a little bit of continuity in the background, like something like that. See how, look at those two different types of colors right there. They're absolutely different temperatures. right. A little bit of a lighter one right in here. I'm going a little bit lighter than what I think would be ideal because this is going to get spray sealed another 1 or 2 times probably. And it's going to darken when I do that. So you go a little bit more opaque than kind of what looks ideal. It also just kind of dries a little bit darker too. So keep that in mind when doing this. Or what you can just do is just allow it to dry, see how it looks, and then just, apply accordingly. Especially, if you're gonna just kind of experimenting around with this type of technique. You get a little bit better feel of it, about the opacity aspect of it. Now, I haven't done this for a while, so I kind of forgot. you know, you got to remember it. You know what I mean? The more you kind of practice it, and then if you don't do it for a while, you kind of forget. So. But the temperature changes. That's like a real kind of like surprise in many ways here. I guess I haven't like applied this over the top of like damp ink, or the damp brilliance ink, I don't know, before or in a while. I don't remember that changing kind of the temperature of it. All right, let's see. We need some over here. Periodically re-rip your paper towel too, because it starts soaking through right in here. And then you start getting kind of that, that textured pattern of your paper towels like showing up in here sometimes. So just kind of, gauge kind of where the paper towel's at, periodically. All right, so see this? I'm just kind of adding these extra little texture forms down. If it gets too busy, what you do is you just kind of merge, a couple different clouds together or something like that with just, hand applications of it, of the ink. Let's see. So how's the temperature for everyone? We're up almost at 90 degrees today here. So I'm doing like 90 degrees. So what you do is you stamp a scene out. Like this scene would be about like 60 degrees. So that from a subconscious standpoint or emotional standpoint, whatever, the temperature for me feels like somewhere in between that. I wish. But I don't know. Sometimes you do. When you do stamp something a little bit cooler. You know what I mean? When it's really hot out. Yeah, like a snow scene would be kind of cool. Or when it's kind of cooler months, you could stamp out like a nice warm, I don't know, whatever, tropical sunset or something like that. All right, let's see how we're doing here. All right. I was looking right up here, wondering if I should add something right behind there. I think that's enough. I think we have enough cloud cover like all throughout here. Up here it'd be just too much. Let's see. Perfect 73. Bring some of that weather over here. That's what we were mostly in Southern California, like for the past couple weeks. Maybe the past couple months. We had that June gloom kind of going on. But I think today's like the hottest day for a while. Then it's going to drop down like about 10 degrees. next week. Sometimes I actually like kind of warmer weather. Sometimes it was like a total desert route. I used to go hiking in the deserts all the time, and I would even go during the summer times. You just take like shorter hikes, and you go out there prepared, of course. But I got really used to the heat. Again, maybe not. Sometimes even like Death Valley or something like that, we go out there. But you just go out if it's like super hot in the daytime. You just like hike at night, which is one of my favorite times to hike. It's just so different. But yeah, I don't know now. That was then. All right, so see this, giving it a little bit more variation right in here. Okay, that looks pretty good. See, this was all kind of monotonous right here. It was all kind of the same kind of value, but then you just kind of break this area up by making it a little bit lighter. A lot of times if you're working in imagery, in landscape or something like that, you break it up by going darker, but I guess this is like we're adding kind of like a reverse application of things. We're going light on top of dark with this, so it's a little bit of a different mindset. Thursday is supposed to be low 60. That is like perfect weather there. It's like perfect hiking weather, like the 60s. I've got a bunch of little seedlings, saplings coming up, and with a lot of planting going on, a lot of veg and herbs. So I'm having to like water, of course, like every day now, just so they don't get zapped. Or what do they call it? So it doesn't. So the new kind of little saplings just don't start bolting, like prematurely, which I think is already kind of happening with a couple of them. I just accidentally added too much right there, so you just kind of wipe it off. All right, now let me try to get. All right, now I don't want to add out. I really need to add some over this fishing boat. I'm not going to do that right there. I'm willing to kind of blend in some of that black and kind of spread it around in front of these objects like that. But when it comes to like a visual focal point, like that little fishing boat, we don't want any smearing on that at all. So I need to wait for that to dry a little bit. All right, so it's kind of coming around a little bit, this is kind of adding ink. It's almost like kind of the sensibility of it, though, for me, when I think about it, it almost feels like I'm working with, like something three-dimensional, like clay or something like that. In some ways, it almost feels like you're working with these forms in here, and kind of modeling things. You know what I mean? Pushing and pulling a little bit. When you add more, it's like you're bringing it out further, or farther from the background. You know what I mean? The lighter you go. So like this area in here, it looks like it's like billowy, then it's like sloping downward like that. So it's all, yeah, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like sculpture in a way. Or I'm reminded of that at least. And that's the same thing with the clayboard art tiles or stamp board. I guess it's when you're working with kind of reverse kind of applications. going light over the top of dark, like that. All right, let me see here. I don't know if I've gone like way overboard here, but it feels like it's integrating a little bit more visually. Okay, so let me do some little other types of tweaks here. The light source, sorry about that glare. The light source is coming from here, so I'm going to try to create a little bit more lighting on tops of some of these clouds, like right over here. Okay, I won't be doing it like everywhere here, but at least like right around some of these clouds that are closest to the light source. I'll make them a little bit lighter just to reiterate that, the lighting as, that moon is the light source. Okay, so I've gone a little bit lighter over here, and that seems to make sense, from a lighting standpoint, that, the objects that are a little bit closer to that light source are going to be influenced by it, a little bit more so than the other areas. Not that you have to kind of follow that or anything. You don't have to do that. I mean, you could have it lighter over here. Like if I had some kind of like subject matter over here that I wanted to look like it was more like in the spotlight, then you light it up accordingly. You know what I mean? So it could be over here, like if there was like I don't know, like a temple on, one of these ridges or something like that, then you could spotlight it. All right. Okay, I really feel like adding some right in there because that would be a, really good integration in there, but we're gonna resist the temptation here. Because I don't want to, I don't want it to get all blobby in there. All right, white paint pen. You're hotter than we are here, Debbie. No, well, no, I think I did look. I think we're up, but you're probably more humid than here. We're not in a dry heat here by any means, but I'm sure it's drier than Alabama. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now. 60s are sounding pretty good to me right now. Vegas. Right. Of course, now that's a really dry heat. Hello, Melanie. How are you? All right. White acrylic 0.7 millimeter paint pen. This might stand out a little bit because I don't have anything that's like really light in here. Like I really feel like putting some highlights on some of these rocks, but the rocks are kind of like, at best they're like a mid-tone or mid-value, I guess blue, okay? So I'm going to be a little bit careful about adding too much of this right in here, and this moon isn't like the brightest of moons. I mean, this is like white right here, okay? So if you compare that to this area right in here, it's, you know what I mean? It's not that light. So, so that being said, as I kind of explain that, so this isn't like the same. This is a little bit of a bluish, like a violet tinge to it. I was telling people in the live stream though, it looks a little bit more. It's more of a reddish blue. I mean, it's mostly blue, okay, but there's a slight violet tinge to it. I get that. See, that looks a little bit more violet down here, but when you look at this area right up here, it just looks more like a deep navy blue, but it has a little bit of a reddish tinge to it in reality. Just the camera's not really picking that up, okay? But I don't have that color in these paint pens here, so. Okay, so as I was just explaining, there's not a lot of super light areas in here, and there's no white, of course. This is white-ish, okay, but this is like more like pure white right here, so it's more like a violet white, but if you want to add in some highlights sometimes the white is just going to be too stark, of a reflected light, you know, if you're putting it on objects, so you can go with like a darker tone like this. I'll try it with this blue right here, even though this, like I said, this blue doesn't really, it's not like a lighter version of this blue right here. It's like different ones. This one's actually like a little bit of a warmish blue, or is it? Well, I don't know. I guess this one's a little bit closer, but these ones aren't like very light right here at all. Okay, but they'll be lighter than some of these areas right in here. I'm just talking, I'm thinking out loud here. Let me try these two first before I start applying anything with the white. It might stand out too much, a little bit. All right. What's the temperature out your way, Melanie? I know someone, a stamper, like I was saying on the live stream. They weren't in the live stream, but they were telling me about the temperatures. I mean, she put it in Fahrenheit. I think it was on the Facebook group or something like that, and she was saying that up her way, I think she was, where was she? I forgot where she was. Is she in Alberta or Ontario? I can't remember, but she said she was like 100 and something. I think it was last week, maybe. Okay, I'm applying some of this down here on some of these rocks. Okay, that is showing up. I didn't think it was showing up. It's very, very subtle. It's just a little bit lighter than that kind of violet. I don't know if you can see that right there. I'm looking on my screen. I can see it slightly. There's a little bit of this bluish tinge, and I'm putting it on like the top areas of those rocks a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to go lighter than that too, but I'm going to start off with a little bit of a darker one. It's like a base coat, and then we'll go lighter accordingly. So it's kind of like, it's like taking a conservative approach to highlighting when you go with a dark highlight, okay? And sometimes when when you do things that way, if I'm shading, sometimes I just shade very lightly, then I just kind of get darker and darker and darker, either with more pressure, with things like colored pencils or something like that, or if it's dye-based inks, I'll add a very light amount of like a certain dye-based color, and then I'll just work, into darker colors. With this one, it's like, if I'm doing highlighting, I start dark, and then you go light, so it's like the opposite. But this is a good way to work too. It's if you're just kind of adding something that's a little bit lighter than the background, then you can kind of, just apply accordingly. It's like, okay, that looks, that makes it look, those objects look, round enough, and it's light enough too, where you don't have to go lighter, like a more, I don't know, contrasted application. Yeah, I think the white down on these rocks would just stand out like way too much. But like, I don't know, maybe like a dot or two might work. But see this right here? I'm putting it, I don't know if you can see it at all. Yeah, okay, see right in here. I'm just adding it again on those top surfaces of some of these rocks. And right in here you can see it a little bit. Okay. Let's try it on some of these little ridges right in here. I keep having to scribble it off like this because I'm adding it over the top of some of this white pigment ink that's hasn't been sealed down yet, so some of the pigment ink keeps going up into my tip right here. Okay, now I'm putting the highlights on the sides of some of these ridges in here that are kind of facing the moonlight. Okay, this isn't applying right in here at all because I've added some of that white pigment ink right back in there, and that white pigment ink is really quite moist. So it's like trying to, apply a dot of paint into, something that's liquid still, practically. All right, this is working out pretty good here with this kind of medium tone blue. Like about like that, right there. That's a little bit too much right there. It's crawling with dots. Here, so you just kind of dab it off like that and it just comes right off. Or you can dab it, then what it does is it removes like half of the ink that you just applied, making it a little like a darker dot of acrylic. The acrylic dries pretty fast, but it's not going to dry super fast where you can't kind of manipulate it, after you've already applied it. It's going to dry a little bit faster though, again, on your porous cardstocks, okay? But this is like the opposite of it. Yeah, the non-porous surfaces. I'd really recommend, though, I hope I'm not turning anyone off to work using these surfaces like this, but they're really fun to use. I did a couple things on here, though, like I mentioned earlier, if you were on. I just said that I stamped out these objects with a super, super juicy black brilliance ink, okay? Now, if I could do it with StazOn over the top of that white, I would have done that, but I was just afraid that the StazOn is just going to dry way too fast. I'm going to stamp it into that wet background of clouds, last Friday night in the live stream. And I was just afraid that instead of transferring the StazOn ink to the surface, I'd just be absolutely removing the brilliance ink that had been applied, so I'd be almost like doing a reverse impression into it. Okay, so I switched off with the lighter pen, if I didn't mention that, and I'm just applying a little bit of a sparser application in the exact same areas that I applied the darker one. I don't know, I guess I'm spreading out a little bit here, but see, adding these little highlights like that in there. So see, that highlight's a little bit lighter than this one. If you want to compare right here. So right in here, I'll add a few on some of these rocks. So we're bringing lighting into the, a little bit of a lighter light into the scenario here in the form of reflected light. So it stands to reason that if this moon was illuminating these clouds and these clouds are this light, it'll be not the equivalent of, but it would be illuminating the other objects in the terrain. Like that a little bit. What is it? I think clouds and moisture. I know snow. I know snow is like something like it reflects like 80-something% of the light or something like that, and like just Earth, it was like, I don't know what it was, 15% or something like that. I forget that format. I heard it once and I forgot it. But it was a lot more. So the clouds are going to be lighter, you know what I mean? Because it's like moisture, moisture in there. Okay, let's bring out some of these trunks a little bit more. I think we'll do it with this one. It's a pretty light blue. Like that. So say these trunks are a little bit more, I don't know, what are visible. I'm not kind of creating the trunk. The trunks are already in the scene, but what I've done is that when you stamp them over the top of blue, then little highlight in there is going to be blue, so I'm just making it a little bit of a lighter color right here. And then you can also make some new branches too sometimes if you want to, and that looks really good in kind of a lighter tone like that. I do that oftentimes with like autumn imagery and trunks. All right. So right there. See those? I added those two little lines up here, so I followed that trunk up like that, and I put those little, like these ones up here, and I think that looks really good like that. It looks like it's capturing the moon, catching the moonlight or reflecting the moonlight a little bit more. Let's see. Let's put one right in here too. About like that. Oh, 91. We need to stamp snow scenes, Candy. All right, let's go to the white right here. After adding kind of those blue tone highlights in our, in our two little like islands, landforms here, and then up in the background mountains, I think the white, the place to add it is really on the clouds. So as I was kind of, I don't know, whatever, talking my way through the highlighting in here, it just seemed to make sense that we'll go with these highlights in the lighter areas or forms, I guess, which would be the clouds. Let's just see what it looks like though. I might not be able to add it everywhere because some of these clouds are still kind of like a wet, white pigment ink, but we'll see what we can do here. So I'm adding these little dots and just trying to taper it a little bit, or a lot, like that, and then it's like there's more up here and less down here. If you add too much, then just go in there and add a little bit more white pigment ink over the top of it. If you added too much, what that would mean is probably we've created too much contrast between these dots and the background. So what you do is you make the background lighter, thus decreasing the contrast between this white and the background, okay? Now this cloud over here is a little bit darker than this one, right? So I might just add a few of these right in here, or none at all. But I think, I don't know, I kind of like the look here, so I'm adding that like on the tops of those like that. It gives it a little bit more, I guess, kind of structure too. Not that that's always, needed or anything like that. Sometimes we just want like this nice soft vapor in the background too. But I think for this one, I think I want to add it in just to see what it would look like. If we just edit over like one of them, it kind of looks weird because it's like this kind of out of place texture. So you kind of have to kind of spread it around a little bit for it to really, show what it's going to look like. Like, see that right in there? That's a little bit too much, so I'll add a little bit of white pigment ink over the top of that. But yeah, see those right there? It's not as integrated as that. Right back in there. Okay, here's without the glare right there. Okay, go like that. And let's see if I can add that white right now in those areas. Sometimes you can't because that, that acrylic paint is probably still a little bit wet, but let's see if we can. The acrylic paint pens pretty much stick to anything. You can use them on glass even. All right, let's see. And again, I need to be careful right around there because that's like wet. All right, there we go. Let's go a little bit more. Here, let me use this. Yeah, let me use my stencil here. All right. A few more things to do on this one, but I think that's kind of getting there. I thought I would have to add a lot more around in these areas where I kind of overlap that whatever landforms, and it gave it that kind of weird, kind of warm tone white in there, but I think it looks okay. We'll see what it looks like though after it dries and after it's been spray sealed again, but I think it's okay. Look at that. See, that white was just added there because I just touched it and it completely removed it right there, so you have to kind of be careful about that. You know, just so you don't have to redo it, but it's no problem just to redo it there. Sometimes I forget about what areas are already kind of spray sealed and what areas aren't. It's like a fine line between kind of like the addition of ink and subtracting it, because as I'm tapping down here, as I was, on this non-porous surface, it was almost like I was kind of tapping it down and I was removing ink. So what I did was I inked this up more so that there's more ink on here, and then that transfers on there. But if there's less ink on here and there's more ink down here, then you're probably going to be removing it. So I don't know, you kind of get the feel of it, almost like with each application, like that. But, all right. So a couple more tweaks to do on this. I won't do another video on it, but I'll show what it looks like when it's done on the... I'll post it on Facebook or something like that. But I have a feeling what I'm going to do too in this open area right up here. I think this is like a perfect spot for like a word stamp. I might do like, I don't know, peace or moonlight or, something like that. In the corner there. And I think I matte this off. I'll matte it off with probably like a pale blue or something like that. That almost looks white. And I'll throw it. I was kind of debating on whether or not to use, I'll have to see what it looks like, but I do have that like super dark black glossy cardstock. Or I can just put a little bit of a hairline, kind of border around it, like I said. Maybe, like I said, I have like a really super light blue, but we'll put something like this in there, and that'll be like that. This is a matte black, so it doesn't really pair with it really well, but the glossy should look pretty good. But I think like a word stamp up here would be cool. And anyway, that is... God, I can't get that glare out of there here. For the camera, at least. Let's see. Go like that. There we go. But now that thing's all glared out. It's tough to get these on camera here. Like I tell people, if you do one of these metallics or any type of metallics like this, here, I'll get in front of that. I'll block off some of the light from my window here. There we go. Just kind of angle it, or you can hold it in your hand and get the right, lighting condition or something like that, and just take the photo that way if you're going to be like posting it on whatever, your online galleries or social media or something like that. But yeah, otherwise, sometimes, when you take a photo, it's like that, which can look kind of cool sometimes, though, too. Or you just take a little mini video of it in your hand like this, and if you want to give people kind of the true kind of spirit of the surface like that with either the metallics or the holographics, you go like this, do a little, or I don't know, just do a little quick, I don't know, a couple second video of it and post that instead. Sometimes that's more effective than like a still shot, that looks like this. It's kind of hard to tell what type of paper that's on like that, but if you do one of these types of things, it's like, oh, okay, I can kind of see what the the spirit of it, this surface is like a little bit more, more so like that. But anyway, all right. Let me see here. That's my camera's exposing for all that white paper around this one, but okay, there we go. So this is a little bit more. That's what this piece looks like in person right here. Okay, in terms of that kind of glowing, kind of blue electric look throughout there. Probably one more coating of the workable fixative, which is the one that I use on these types of papers these days, but a word stamp and the matting, and this one should be done. So anyway, in this heat, we're talking about the temperature and things like that. So I find that these metallics like this, in the heat, they all start getting like bowed like this. So when I get it, I usually double matte. That'll take care of that bowing. It won't be doing that anymore, but I don't know. It did make me think about it though, with all my papers like getting bowed like that. So just counter bow, and I don't know. So it's pretty fun. Like I said, it feels like a different kind of like spirit when you're doing that. Like I said, it's like somewhere like, I don't know, when you're adding all that white in there, it's like modeling something. So it's it's like, it feels like a three-dimensional type of process. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, if you haven't done it before, you're probably going to be fighting with it, but you get the feel of it though. Use different amounts of pigment ink on your applicator, whatever you happen to be using, on these types of non-porous surfaces like that. I don't know of other types of inks that will work like that and dry than the Brilliance water-based ones, okay? But it doesn't mean like it dries really fast or anything like that. It just depends on how much you apply. But, besides Zale and that, low 70s or whatever, it might be hot enough. I don't know. Maybe it was like 90 degrees, but like super humid. Maybe that's not drying either. But, you can put it outside. These foils like this, I don't think they're going to fade out or anything like that if you have it outside. I left this one out like for 2 days, like overnight outside, and I just let it dry a little bit more. Then I spray sealed it across the imagery. I need to spray seal it again, once or twice, but I'm going to leave it out there to dry. But I don't know, it's just kind of fun. It's just a little bit of a different type of process than, typical coloring on porous types of, cardstocks or something like that. So I don't know. Like I said, it's really fun, and it's the type of it's the type of surface that we use to get these types of looks like that. So if you want to kind of add a little twist into your stamping sometime, use some of that. This is a certain type of foil like this, but the Recollections ones, these really cheap ones that they sell in the multi-pack at Michael's, those ones they're cheap in terms of like thickness and I think in quality in some ways, but they're a little bit more porous. So these types of ink applications, I don't know, I find they dry on here a little bit faster, but these ones right here aren't sealed and glossy like this one. So, when I start applying like all these clouds in here, they would probably pick up some of this purple printer's ink that's over the top of this silver, presumably silver cardstock, okay, or silver foil, and you're going to be picking up some of this color. which is kind of interesting too, because it integrates that color, so instead of like applying white, you're kind of applying like a lighter, whatever, magenta or something like that too. So those come into play. But I don't know. It's I like the end result. It's reasonably fun to do. 8 p.m. 91. These vertical scenes. Oh, you like the verticals, Candy? Yeah, I need to do some more of those, like more like bookmark ones that people are posting. Who does a lot of those? Astrid does a lot. Deanna, have you posted some, those real kind of narrow bookmark ones? Would be like half this width right here. This one would be really good, huh? Too, on like even if it was like a real kind of narrow thing, like, I'd bring this over a little bit, but even like this would be kind of cool. Maybe that's even better looking, huh? It looks like it's I don't know, the right proportions or something like that. Ratio for this scene right here. I don't know, maybe even more than that, huh? Guess we can always cut off any part we don't want. Let me see right here. I was going to say, if we cut it in half, then I can have two scenes, two scenes out of one, but I'd have to put some kind of focal point right in here. This other one has the moon and that fishing boat down here like that. But this one would just have that. So this is what I should be stamping out, for everyone. The winter type of piece. If it gets any hotter, if I start getting really tired of this heat here, it'll be like all snow scenes for the next whatever couple months in the live streams, maybe. Not really, but I don't know. All right. Thanks for checking out the tweaks. Maybe it's more than tweaks on this one. Hope you like the look right here. This scene right here, I mean, it took a little bit of time, but it's also like a half page one too. But you can do these types of ones like this on the quarter page, and again on the reflections cardstock a lot faster. But again, this one was like this new cardstock that I was playing around with, that super sealed off. So again, I'll think about some other types of applications maybe too, and I'll experiment too. Maybe with some kind of cloudier background or something like that. And I'll try the StazOn ink over the top of that pigment ink at some point in time, and we'll see if that works. Or what you do is you lay down some clouds like that, and then you spray seal them, okay? And if we can lock down those clouds in the background like that, pretty good with the workable fixative, then I think we can just stamp right over the top of that sealed application to clouds with StazOn ink, I think. And, if we do that, then we won't have to worry about, kind of adding in some additional clouds in the foreground like that and having it kind of merge and smear, kind of a wet, whatever thick application of Brilliance ink in there. So we'll see if we can do a faster version of this with a little bit of a tweak of some of our existing media out there. A lot of you guys have like a StazOn pad, I think. So, and if you haven't picked up some workable fixative, I'd kind of recommend it because it opens up a lot of doors and possibilities for some of these other types of surfaces too. We were playing around with some colored pencil layering too. And sometimes on some surfaces you can't add too many colored pencils because it starts getting built up a little bit too much. But then if you put on some spray sealant over the top of it, I find that it gives it more of a kind of a textured coating, lockdown coating, and then you can add in some more, of these types of media right over the top of it, which is, I don't know, It kind of surprised me, but it shouldn't, though, because that's what workable fixative is really for. So you can work it, you know, right over the top of it, and it's not sealing it off like a glossy coating, like a, you know, UV resistant clear gloss or something like that, or a Krylon crystal clear. All right, folks. Hope you have a great rest of evening. Stay nice and cool, if need be, and hydrated especially, right? So I should go get a drink right now myself. All right, folks. Hope to see you on the next live. And I don't know. Come back if you're feeling hot. If you see I'm on, I'll stamp out a nice winter scene for you. With some ice skaters on it, maybe.